Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is your lesson 3.14. It's the last lesson in Unit 3. You are going to be able to graph a linear equation that is written in standard form. So, please remember, in order to graph, you actually want your equation to be in slope-intercept form, and that's because you will be able to begin with the b, the y-intercept value, and then you'll be able to move with m. So what it means to be able to graph from standard form is that we actually have a two-step process. The first step is to do this transformation. We talked about this last week. We remember that you will have an equation that has some components that are normal for a linear equation, but they're not in the order we want. We want it in this order so that it says y equals. We want to be able to grab our slope and grab our y-intercept so we can actually do the graphing piece. So here's what needs to happen with this one. Okay, if you like to organize your work by drawing the locker, that should be your first step. You should notice that the y is over here. It's positive, but you also have a 2x over here. You do not want this here, so we said you're going to use adding or subtraction to get rid of your term with the x. What happens is it is gone from this side, but know that it is on this side now. So since you cannot combine your plain constant term of 7 with your negative 2x term, you will bring this down. Negative 2x plus 7 is what you're going to keep on this side. And on this side, since x is already positive, we do not need to do any further work. However, this does allow us to graph. So please remember, your y-intercept is your beginning point. In our case, it is positive 7. So that becomes our beginning point. Remember, this is your y-axis. And then what we sometimes have to do with our slope is we have to think about having a whole number, but then the definition of slope is where we rise and then we run. So in our case, we have to make sure we're rising negative 2 from our beginning point, and then we have to make sure we're running 1. So this is what it looks like. Starting at your beginning point, rise negative 2 means go down 2, and then run 1. Down negative 2, run 1. We're running to the right because our bottom number to our slope is a positive, and we're going down because the top number to our slope, our rise, is a negative 2. This is going to give us an equation that heads downhill, or remember slope dude, nice, negative. Okay, so what you'll do is you'll extend it, you'll make sure you grab a straight edge, you'll connect your points. Your equation should always have arrows at both ends, and your equation should always be labeled. So make sure you're labeling your equations. Make sure you're using that straight edge. So remember, there's two steps. First, you have to transform the equation to get it to say y equals. Then, you're going to grab your beginning point, and then you're going to move with your slope. Next question. What we have is x minus 4y equals 8. This one is going to involve a couple of steps to be able to solve for y equals, and that's because you not only have this negative 4 attached to y, but you have this x term out front. So if we need to start with this x term, the x term is originally positive, so that's why we're subtracting x from both sides. We're bringing down our negative 4y. And then over here, remember, you cannot combine your plain number with your x term, so it's best if you put your x term down first, and then put your constant term at the end. We are not totally done this time, remember, because you still have a coefficient to y. So what we talked about last week is if there's a coefficient attached to y, it's attached by multiplication. To get rid of it, you do your opposite and you divide. You have to divide by the negative 4 because that's the only way this is going to cancel out to give you what you want, which is positive y. Now, we do have to go back and review a little bit of what our algebra reminds us. If you have a x, it's really a negative 1 in this case, and when you go to clean up this fraction, negative divided by negative is a positive, and 1/4, you want to keep it in the form of a fraction because we don't want to be turning this stuff to decimals. So guys, our original equation has been transformed. We have it in what's called slope-intercept form, which means we can grab our y-intercept. We can go to our y-axis, we can plot our y-intercept, and then we are going to do our slope, which remember is how we move between points. Begin with B, move with M. Guys, this time we have a positive slope. So what that means is our rise is going to take us up, our run is going to take us to the right. This one is not quite as steep as that last one we did. Remember, when you run out of room, you can back it up and you can go the opposite direction. Again, you're going to connect with your ruler, arrows at the ends, and label. So guys, it's really nothing new. We're just putting two of our basic skills together. One skill, remember, is being able to solve it for y equals, which is called slope-intercept form. The second skill is being able to take the points or the values from your slope-intercept equation and to get them so that you can actually get the graph or the line graphed on graph paper. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to try solving for y equals on the next couple questions. I'd like you to check back with me. You can hit pause while you're working. When you're done working and you think you have it right, obviously play the video so you can check your work. And that way you get a little bit more guided practice in before we do our bigger assignment. So go ahead, pause the video, and then when you're ready, hit play so you can check your work. When you're all done, obviously we want these notes taped into your notebook. Okay, so checking our work. What you will notice is I moved the 3x to the opposite side. I still had a negative y, which means negative 1y. We keep these two terms separate because you cannot combine x's with numbers, but you do have to finish up by dividing by that coefficient. This turns our y-intercept to negative 5, and it turns our slope into positive 3. Always put a 1 under a whole number. Remember, this information here is what gets you to actually graph your equation. So beginning point, negative 5, and then rise 3, run 1. This is a nice positive slope, and hopefully we can get this on our graph accurately, connecting, putting arrows, and labeling. So, moving on, question 4. We have to move our 2x term to the opposite side. Notice both of these terms are now negative. 5y, we still have to get rid of that coefficient of 5. So when we divide, remember, you're oftentimes going to get a slope value that does not reduce. So negative 2 divides by 5, and we're going to leave it a fraction, negative 2/5. Negative 10 divides by 5 and gives us our beginning point at negative 2. And then we've got to make sure our slope is negative, so that means our rise is going to be the negative 2 down. And then we are going to run to the right. Okay, if we were to go down 2 and then to the left 5, we would just end up with a slope that is heading uphill. And a puff-up positive slope is not what we're looking like for here, guys. So that's why you have to go down and to the right. Or if you run out of room, what you can do is you could always go up and to the left. And this will continue the slope that we are supposed to be graphing. So again, make sure you connect, make sure you have arrows, and make sure you label. And that brings you to the last question, number 5. We have to move our 5x. We have to divide by negative 1 all the way across. Remember, negative divided by negative is a positive. Positive divided by negative is a negative. So guys, this time we have a y-intercept that is way down here. Alright, negative 10 is our beginning point. And then we're rising 5. And we're running 1. So this one is very steep. It's the steepest one we've done so far. And again, make sure we follow up with connecting. And make sure we follow up with labeling and arrows. So at this point, you are ready to cut this note sheet, tape it in your notebook. And what your assignment is going to be is to complete, if you haven't done so already, you've got this Minions puzzle. There are 8 equations that are to be graphed on graph paper. We set this up together, remember? So you have graph paper, you have a couple of lines that we already started, and your job is to finish. Your job is to make sure that it is stapled to your Minions puzzle and that you have turned it in. If you are done with this assignment already, your job after putting your notes in your notebook is to start our review packet. We are finishing the unit, so you need to review, and our test should be on Wednesday. So go ahead and begin your review packet if you are done with your Minions puzzle and graph. Have a great day.